So it looks like now the field will come into formation, and Jake Query, they do come into their lines. 7 rows of 2 in front of you as Jackman will not make the start here this afternoon.
Yeah, James Hinchcliffe perfectly beside Martin Plowman. They start 1 and 2. Martin Plowman to the outside. They start to accelerate as they work their way out of the keyhole, and we are just about to get set racing here for the Firestone Indy Lights at Mid-Ohio.
Turn that they'll assess first. We see a couple of cars jumping out of line back of the field. That's Sebastian Saavedra and also Charlie Kimball. Winning the drag race, the pole sitter, Martin Plowman. He'll grab the top spot as they slide their way through turn number 4. Now a left-hander setting up for turn number 5. It's back downhill, then they'll slide it back to the right to enter turn 6. They'll go underneath the Honda Bridge, which is a short stretch, as they enter Thunder Valley.
Pippa, it was a pretty good alignment there, but Martin Plowman brought him to the green flag relatively slow. I think that was by design.
Yep, Martin brought him to the green flag relatively slow and then took a really big leap on Hinch at the start and kind of slotted in right halfway down the back straight in front of him. I just saw Charlie Kimball. He's got ahead of Wilson and Sebastian Saavedra, I think.
Yeah, Kimball popped to the outside on the start, took a very wide groove as now they will pass in front of us for the very first time, completed the first lap. So out in front, it is Plowman, followed by Hinchcliffe, Clark, Wilson, Kimball, Saavedra, Campos Jr. Then you've got Vernay, Winslow, and Major. Your top 10 first lap fairly clean here, Pippa.
Hinchcliffe is right up underneath Plowman. He's having a look to the inside. Couldn't quite get it done that time. Tucked back in behind.
In front of you, Jake Query.
Well, James Hinchcliffe, as Pippa Mann said, had a bit of a run, then had to lock up those brakes a little bit. James Hinchcliffe now about 3 car lengths behind Martin Plowman as they head into the view of Mark James.
Plowman pedaling hard now as they set up for the S's. Hinchcliffe trying to close the gap. In his rearview mirror is the number 40 of Dan Clark. Clark's opened up a bit of a gap. Some tire smoke puffs from the rear of the car of Charlie Kimball as he's all over the 28 machine of Stephen Wilson. They're single file at the exit of turn number 6, setting up for Thunder Valley.
Yeah, Thunder Valley is the turn 8, 9, 10 area, and Pippa, let's face it, really no real good opportunity to pass in that part of the racetrack.
No, in that part of the racetrack is pretty much follow your leader, but Hinch is caught straight back up to the back of Plowman and is looking like he doesn't want to let him go. And a little bit further back, you've got Kimball, who's all over the back of Stephen Wilson. Looks like he's pretty close to him, having got past the Vader early on.
Here they are on the carousel as less than a car length separates first and second place. Martin Plowman, James Hinchcliffe, cross in front of us, completing 2 of 40 laps. So first, second, and third place, Plowman, Hinchcliffe, and Clark separated by about a total of 10 car lengths as they make the left-hand turn up to turn number 1. Now they'll climb the hill to the keyhole, and Jake Query.
They move single file now. Dan Clark watching the leaders. Martin Plowman, then about 2 car lengths behind Plowman. It's James Hinchcliffe. Dan Clark in third position right now. He's coming off 2 straight top 5s. He was a runner-up in Toronto as now Martin Plowman takes the field, and that righty coming out of the keyhole.
A couple of car lengths the advantage now as they start to move to the high side of the racetrack and climb on the binders to enter the S's. Hinchcliffe's breaking point was just a little bit later. That allows him to close, although it seems as though Martin Plowman's car is handling pretty well through the trickier portions of this race course. The lead shrinks to about a half a car length now.
Charlie Kimball made a nice pass up there in turn 2 as he got past Stephen Wilson, Pippa. And that is not normally a place where we see a lot of passing, but Charlie made it look fairly easy up there.
Well, with the Firestone Indy Lights car, it's difficult to follow through turn 1 here, but it is possible. So, you know, Kimball made great use of getting up underneath him through turn 1 and then great launch up the inside, really good pass.
Well, keep in mind that it is James Hinchcliffe running second who needs a win here this afternoon as he wants to do everything he can to cut into the lead of J.K. Vernay, the Sam Schmidt Motorsports driver, who has already won 4 times this year. He currently runs 8th as they head back to Jake Query in turn number 2.
Those leaders are starting to separate themselves now as Martin Plowman and Hinchcliffe come through, and wherever Martin Plowman goes, there's James Hinchcliffe. He starts to look towards the inside, but Plowman again has a sizable advantage, and so as they come through in the bottom part of the keyhole, Martin Plowman is able to stay on that line where James Hinchcliffe can't get a view to the inside.
Hinchcliffe got a nice run at the exit of turn number 2, but Plowman had an answer for it. Again, a bit of a later breaking point for the yellow and white number 2 machine of James Hinchcliffe. He pulls right up on the rear wing. Those two starting to get about a 6 car length differential between them and the third place car of Dan Clark.
Pippa, pretty amazing when you look at the best times for both Plowman and Hinchcliffe. 2 10,000ths of a second separating these 2 drivers. So essentially they're driving the same race cars. They are both very, very equal out there.
And when you see them out on track and on the screen, they're absolutely tied together at the moment on the racetrack. So it's kind of not surprising the times the same.
Yeah, just amazing that you have to go out to the 4th decimal point when you compare their best lap times at 1:16.9357 and 1:16.9359. In front of us, they'll complete the 4th of 40 laps. So we're working lap number 5. Martin Plowman on pole for the first time in Firestone Indy Lights history. Jake Query leads him to you in turn number 2.
And as he does so, I'm keeping an eye also on Charlie Kimball. Those front two have checked out a little bit. And Charlie Kimball, who has worked his way up now into the 4th position, tries to work on Speedy Dan Clark. Behind Charlie Kimball, you have Stephen Wilson and then Sebastian Saavedra. But you've got the front 3, then about a 15-car length gap before you get to Charlie Kimball.
Kimball's got a lot of work to do to catch up to the 3rd place car of Dan Clark. That's quite a differential. He's able to hold off Stephen Wilson, Sebastian Saavedra, and Adrian Campos Jr. Those front 3 now really starting to stretch it out as they make the left-hand turn, slide into the right-hand turn underneath the Honda Bridge. It's
Adrian Campos Jr. trying to work on Sebastian Saavedra right now. This is the battle for 6th place. And interestingly enough, Pippa, we have not seen J.K. Vernay make up any ground at all. He started 8th. That's where he is right now. So it looks like whatever the problem is plaguing J.K., it persists here in the race.
Yep, it looked that way this morning in warm-up as well. It's just been a tough weekend for the SSM guys, but there's a great race up front now. I know JK wishes he was a part of it, and I wish he was too, but it's a great race unfolding in front of us.
Yeah, a couple of good races right now. As very quickly, let's check in on pit lane with Kevin Lee.
Hinchcliffe and his team not going to be content just to hang on the rear gearbox of Martin Plowman and force him into a mistake. They're telling him, find out where you're faster, start thinking of places where you can set him up for a pass.
We take a look last time by Dan Clark, Pippa, nearly 0.3 of a second quicker than both Plowman and Hinchcliffe running in front of him.
Yep, and Kimball ran almost exactly the same lap time as Dan Clark, so Plowman's going to get a few cars stacking up behind him, I think, soon at the moment. Yep. I guess he's a little bit worried about Hinch behind him, driving a good line, but maybe on his mirrors just a tiny bit in some places. And Hinch is looking fairly strong, but he's going to have Clark to worry about catching up behind him fairly soon.
Both Clark and Kimball have recorded lap times that are nearly 0.3 of a second quicker than the front runners, Plowman and Hinchcliffe, as Plowman has had Hinchcliffe on his rear wing throughout this race. Dan Clark now, as Pippa just stated, he's going to be a factor here before this one is over. Gustavo Yakiman, they have whatever the problem was for the number 10 machine. They have found the problem and gotten him back out on track. Pippa, the only problem is he is 5 laps down to everyone else on the track. So it's simply a matter now of him going out and just running hard, running clean, and getting in as many laps as he possibly can.
Yep, and hoping a few people fall off.
So Gustavo Yakiman back out on track in the Crepes and Barrel machine. Meantime, the race up front, the top 3 cars, they're in front of Jake Query in 2.
Yep, Martin Plowman and then Hinchcliffe. Same distance, again, that front 3, which is the trio of Plowman, Hinchcliffe, and then as well Dan Clark checked out on the rest of the field. Decent battle was going on in the back of the field for 11th position between Juan Pablo Garcia and David Martinez. Garcia managing to hold him off, but those two were having some fun going side by side last time by.
Already into the S's, Martin Plowman towing along James Hinchcliffe, and also the 40 machine of Dan Clark. They'll make the right-hander out of the S's and swing it back into that middle mini straightaway as they head into Thunder Valley.
Pippa, because it is very difficult to pass here, and we noticed that Clark and Kimball are both faster than Plowman and Hinchcliffe, the question is, how much faster do you have to be than the car in front of you? Is 0.3 of a second on a lap enough to be able to get past a guy who's running in front of you?
The problem is it's a question of momentum. Once you catch the car up, you're limited by their pace in front of you, so it makes it so difficult to get past. Hinch has dropped back a tiny bit on this lap. On the previous lap, he had the fastest lap of the race, but now Plowman takes fastest lap of the race back. So Plowman looks like he's starting to focus forwards a bit more now, and he's dragging Hinch and Clark along with him still.
So we take a look as the top 3 make their way through turn number 2. And once again, this is a hairpin. They call it the keyhole, but they only label it as one turn, Mark Janes, as the top 3 cars make their way to you.
And the differential has been the same between those 3 cars for about the last 3 times that they've toured by us. Martin Plowman, it looks as though Hinchcliffe is gaining a little bit of an advantage as they set up for this right-handed turn. Because his braking point's a little bit later than Plowman's, but Plowman's able to pull away and have plenty of throttle to keep that distance at about a car length or 2. Same thing for Dan Clark. He gets pulled up on the yellow and white number 2 machine. So those three setting a pretty nice race pace on a beautiful day here at Mid-Ohio.
Let's give you the full field rundown as Plowman, who started on full pole for the first time and is looking for his first win in Firestone Indy Lights competition, is out in front in the AFS Racing Andretti Autosport machine. In fact, we're going to be trying to catch up with Gary Peterson, the team owner, in just a few minutes as he does double duty this weekend. Not only does he have cars entered in this event where he runs full time for the championship, but he also has Adam Carroll in the number 27 AFS car that will be competing as part of the IZOD IndyCar Series this weekend. James Hinchcliffe looking to make up ground on championship leader J.K. Burnett. He came in 55 points back. He is currently running second. Third place to Dan Clark. Fourth place to Charlie Kimball. Stephen Wilson is fifth. As Pippa, you're keeping an eye on another battle. It looks like Charlie Kimball still on the move. Well, trying to hold off, it looks like Stephen Wilson as they make their way through two.
Yeah, I just noticed Hinch got really, really close up behind Plowman going into the keyhole up there, but didn't quite pop out and get it done because he's still behind him. But that's what caught my attention on the screen as I was looking at it.
Rest of the field, as we mentioned, Wilson runs fifth, Saavedra runs sixth, Campos Jr. is seventh, Burnett is eighth. That's where he started. And in fact, J.K. started seventh, has dropped a position on track in these first 8 laps. Winslow is ninth, Major is 10th, Martinez is 11th, Garcia runs 12th, Barbosa is 13th, Villarino in his first Firestone Indy Lights start is 14th. And as we mentioned, Yakiman had the problem, and he is 5 laps down running 15th. Mark James?
Gustavo Yakiman and the number 8 machine of Juan Pablo Garcia may have bumped wheels at the setup to the S's. It looked as though Yakiman was going to make a move and kind of surprised Garcia a little bit. They got into the dirt to the bottom side of the racetrack, and again, might have banged wheels, but both cars were able to continue on.
Yep, it's the last thing you want, I think, if you're 5 or 6 laps down in a race that you have really no way of making up a lot of positions until someone goes out. You don't want to end someone else's race.
No, you absolutely don't. And, you know, the problem is, as I said, Gustavo actually ran very, very quickly this morning, so he's probably quite a lot quicker than the car coming up behind, and that car probably didn't expect a car who is 5 lap downs to try and pass, so it's a difficult situation.
Pippa Mann, our guest driver analyst, joining us this weekend. Live coverage of Firestone Indy Lights. Action from Mid-Ohio Sports Car, of course, as we're happy to have you with us. IMS Radio Network coverage along with IndyCar.com, bringing you all of the action. 2:30 this afternoon, we'll be back with you on the IMS Radio Network for full coverage of race number 12 in the IZOD IndyCar Series, the Honda Indy 200. Plowman is out in front. Hinchcliffe runs second. Clark is third. As we mentioned to you a little bit earlier, Gary Peterson, the team owner who campaigns 2 cars in Firestone Indy Lights, doing double duty this weekend. Kevin Lee has caught up with him on pit lane.
So far, so good for Martin. Any issues, any concerns?
No, Martin said the car's good. He's just driving a good, safe race and having fun.
First of a pair of races for you. You'll have Adam Carroll along with Andretti Autosport, AFS Andretti Autosport. Do you have a realistic goal of being full-time in the series next year?
I do. You know, it's going to take a lot. We're working on it. We're kind of waiting for Lyle to settle the rules, get all the rules down for next year, find out what's going on with the leader car. Winter Circle Club. Mike and I are talking. We're going to do something. We're going to keep on continuing our program together and hopefully move it up from the Lights to the IndyCar program full time. If not next year, it'll be the following year, but we'll do several races.
I know you guys like Adam a lot.
Yeah, he's a good driver. I mean, he's a top-notch world competitor, and the kid just needs a break. And you know me, I'm always trying to help these kids. And you know, I think today he was P2, P4 in the last practice session. That's exceptional for him, first time in cars.
Good luck the rest of the way. Adam Carroll will be starting for AFS or Andretti Autosport. His second IZOD IndyCar Series start in a couple of hours, and right now, the AFS driver, Martin Plowman, leads the field in Firestone Indy Lights.
Yeah, and he led down. We've got a problem, looks like, on course, and let's wait and see. As we look in turn number 9, it looked like a car simply got sideways, may have saved it, so no local yellow, and everyone is okay. So a lot of tire smoke, but it looks like everyone has righted themselves, so we are okay. We are 11 of 40 laps complete. Martin Plowman has led all 11 of those laps from the pole, as James Hinchcliffe runs in second place. Dan Clark is third. Right now, though, a good battle between Plowman and Hinchcliffe. In front of you, Jake Query.
Got the feeling that James Hinchcliffe is just kind of hanging around right now because Martin Plowman has not been able to do anything to give himself any separation. James Hinchcliffe right in the tire marks of Martin Plowman.
They continue in that manner as they make their way through turn number 3. It's more of a kink in the racetrack than an actual turn, even though it's labeled a turn 3. Certainly turn 4, turn 5, and turn 6, much more pronounced. That's the portion that they're tackling now It also has some elevation changes, too, a la the last couple of turns of a roller coaster for those of you who are enthusiasts like that. It'll straighten out a little bit now as they enter Thunder Valley.
Pippa, we noticed that as the tires go off just a little bit, but as the track rubber's in, the times have gotten much better. In fact, both Plowman and Hinchcliffe nearly a second quicker as far as their best times than they were in the first 6 or 7 laps here this afternoon.
Yeah, whenever the sports cars go down, they just tend to leave a slightly greasy surface on the track, and when the Indy Lights go back down, it takes a few laps for the tires to really get down. And in fact, they both just set their fastest laps of the race again. Both almost exactly the same time. Plowman just fractionally faster than Hinchcliffe on that lap, but he still looks like he's really stalking him.
Yep, so 12 laps in, we see the quickest laps of the race set by our race leaders. However, the quickest lap of the race overall belongs to Stephen Wilson, as Pippa, he had turned a lap earlier at a minute 14.7316, still about 0.2 of a second quicker than Plowman and Hinchcliffe. So Stephen Wilson working with a pretty good car right now. Only problem is he's stuck back there in 5th place.
Yeah, he's really, really fast. He was actually one of my picks to end up on the podium for this race, and at the moment he's stuck back there in 5th, but he sure is fast around this course.
Yep, and we want to remind you that you can be with us a week from this coming Tuesday as we preview the upcoming Firestone Indy Lights event, the Carneros 100, that will come your way 2 weeks from today at Infineon Raceway in Sonoma, California, and on the Peak Performance Fantasy Racing Show a week from this Tuesday at 2:30 on IndyCar.com. We'll tear apart Pippa Mann's picks because she made all of our picks for us, and we've had driver guests who have done a great job this year. Mark James, who was with me before the race at Edmonton, did a great job, placed 2 of the 3 bonus picks for Firestone Indy Lights in the category, so we earned 100 bonus points there. And Pippa, right now you're a little bit nervous. You think some of your picks may be on the fence compared to what you thought on Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, I thought my teammate J.K. Vernet would be right up there with Hinch, and I actually thought Wilson would be right up there too. He's proving he's got really, really fast race pace. I think he was the fastest on that lap through as well.
Yeah.
So he's got great race pace. He just didn't quite have the qualifying he needed.
The good news is you're solid right now with Hinch.
Well, I got 1 out of 3. I guess that's better than none at all.
Well, we are not even at the halfway point, and a lot can happen with 27 laps remaining, as we are showing 13, soon to be 14 laps complete. Martin Plowman remains out in front. James Hinchcliffe runs second. Dan Clark is third. Once again, let's remind everyone why Pippa Mann is in the broadcast booth with us this weekend here at Mid-Ohio, as opposed to being in the Sam Schmidt Motorsports entry that she is normally driving in. Pippa, you injured the hand at Toronto.
Yep, injured my hand in Toronto.
And you actually underwent surgery. And tell us, it was a pretty good break you had there in your left hand.
Yep, it was a pretty good break I had in my left hand. Got through Toronto and Edmonton and had surgery as soon as I came back home from Canada. So have to sit this one out. Hoping to be back in the car and not in the booth for Sonoma in a couple of weeks' time.
Not that you're not enjoying being in the booth, but you just
I
enjoy
just
driving
being
a car
in the
more.
car more. Yes.
Yeah, and they actually put screws or a plate in the hand? They put a plate in the hand, right?
A plate and 3 pins or 3 screws, whatever they put into both of your hands.
Right, yeah, so you had to have the surgery. Good news is you've already gotten, just compared to when we saw you on Tuesday, you have a lot more flexibility in the fingers than you did then.
Yep, have a lot more flexibility, a lot more movement. I'm slowly gaining strength and movement back, so hopefully I'll be back for Sonoma. I was just noticing on the TV monitors that Plowman seems to have gapped Hinch a little bit on this lap, so looks like he's pulling away a little bit now, maybe.
Gustavo Yakiman once again in the 10 car, the crepes and waffles machine. Let's keep in mind that while Gustavo is turning some fairly good laps, he stalled the car on the opening lap. In fact, not even the opening lap. It was the out lap from pit lane, Pippa, to get the cars out on track. So it was the first pace lap, if you will, of this event. The car came to a stop as it was making the uphill run to the keyhole. And it appeared the way they had to use the quick jack that perhaps the gearbox locked on him. Whatever it was, they were able to get him back to the pits, make the repairs, but he missed the first 5 laps of the race.
Yes, he did. He's just hoping that somebody falls off, and he's running, it looks like, a pretty good pace at the moment because he's picking off those cars in front of them and going past, but unfortunately he's not going quick enough, I don't think, to unlap himself enough times. He'd have to be going really fast to do that.
Now, the William Raz machine of Sebastian Saavedra right now is shown in 6th place. Sebastian, who certainly had high hopes, I think, this season, Pippa, to be a championship contender. He also made his first start in the Indianapolis 500, drives the William Raz machine for Brian Herta Autosport. It's really been kind of an up-and-down campaign for Sebastian Saavedra in his second season.
I mean, sometimes it's difficult going into a second season, but I think something that's very interesting is, it almost proves that those AFS cars, Plowman's in one of them, Kimball's in another, they're obviously really, really good because Sebastian last year was just fantastic, and this year he looks good. So it's not just all down to driver, it's driver and car combination. This year Plowman's doing a great job in the car that Sebastian was doing a great job in last year.
Well, certainly he and his teammate J.R. Hildebrand had a great battle last year for the championship. But Pippa, I think what you're saying is the team can make a huge difference.
Yeah, teams always make a huge difference. And it doesn't matter whether it's an oval, road course, street course. And I think that's proved by the fact that J.K. Bonet has won as many races as he has, and he's just struggling a little bit here this weekend, as are the teammates. It's just been a difficult weekend for our team.
He is still running, by the way, Bernet in 8th place. Meantime, Sebastian Saavedra has turned the quickest lap of the race at a minute 14.5842. Up in front, Martin Plowman. As you mentioned, he's got a little bit of a gap now in second place, James Hinchcliffe. By no means a lot of room has he pulled away, but Pippa, it's now probably 2 or 3 car lengths, where before, Hinchua was within a good car length, maybe less, of the rear wing of Martin Plowman.
Yeah, no, he's just dropped back a tiny bit, but even as we look at it, it looks like he's just gaining back up again. But they both really dropped Speedy Dan Clark back. He looks like he's falling back towards the clutches of Kimball a little bit now, I think.
Yeah, Dan Clark right now is shown 2.3 seconds behind Martin Plowman, the leader. And Kimball, who is shown in 4th place, trails Clark by about 9/10 of a second, as we have settled down here into a pretty good race pace for Martin Plowman, the pole sitter and the race leader, as we have scored 16 of the 40 scheduled here this afternoon. Got off to a bit of a late start because of some damage to the guardrail, the outside of turn number 13 here, exiting the carousel that occurred during the World Challenge sports car race that was held earlier today, about an hour and a half ago. Martin Plowman is out in front. James Hinchcliffe runs second. Dan Clark is third. Kimball is shown in 4th place. As right now we're watching Gustavo Jacoman continue to try to work his way back towards the front despite the fact that he has so many laps down. Gustavo Jacoman right now trying to work on, who is that? Philip Major, I think it is. Yeah. So having a pretty good race there.
The team will be on the radio to Philip and be like, hey, just be aware he's 5 laps down. This is not the position, because then you just kind of make it a little bit easier, because you don't want to fight someone really hard when it's not 4-track position.
So Gustavo Jacoman will make his way towards you, Mark James, as he tries to get past Major.
We can see that blue and yellow and red machine tracking down Philip Major as they approach what was the starting point for this race. As they start to get to the high side and work up on turn number 4, Philip Major climbs on the binders, keeping Jacoman at bay. There's a side-by-side battle just behind them, though, that broke off pretty nicely as they went into turn number 1. Cars involved in that battle include the number 8 machine. That's Juan Pablo Garcia and the 36th machine of Dave Martinez. They go nose to tail into Thunder Valley.
Yeah, Garcia and Martinez battling each other for the 11th spot on track, and a pretty good battle there. It is. Plowman, meantime, out in front. Hinchcliffe runs second. Clark is third. And Pippa, you're right. Kimball is looking like he is now beginning to reel in Clark just a little bit, as he is making up about a 10th or 2 on each lap as we watch them come around. As we're watching, I think, is that Jacoman?
That's a pass in the background.
There it is. This is a replay.
Number 36 and the number 8 going side by side, and the number 8 completes the pass.
Yeah,
so
that's Garcia.
Garcia passing Martinez.
Yeah, and so Garcia, as Mark James told us a little bit earlier, we were just watching the replay, as nice pass there by Garcia to make the move to 11th place, as some young drivers, feeling their way around these race cars. For some of them for the very first time, Pippa, and when these drivers are making the transition from other series to these cars for the first time, it takes a few laps to get comfortable.
It does take a few laps.
There's Jacoman.
There's Jacoman going past Philip Major. I guess the team got on the radio and told him, hey, not for position. You may as well just, make sure you don't get together with him and follow him through. If he's going that much quicker as well, try and follow in his wheel tracks and try and learn from him.
Yeah, Jacoman once again finds himself make it 6 laps down, as Jacoman had problems at the start, of mechanical issue on the opening pace lap here as his car exited pit lane. No issues, though, Mark James, for Martin Plowman, as he led from the pole the first 19 laps. As we're now working lap 20, they'll see the white flag this time by as they head towards you in turn number 4.
Well, Mike, to be perfectly honest with you, usually in this series this year, if you start up front, you stay up front. Go back through the course of the race. Hinchcliffe led all 45 laps at Long Beach. Sebastian Saavedra led 115 laps at Iowa Speedway. 50 laps led by Hinchcliffe and Edmondson. About the only time they split it down the middle was at Watkins Glen when Bernay led 12 laps and Hinchcliffe led 18. Bernay led 31 of the 35 laps at St. Petersburg. He led 39 of the 40 laps at Barber. So Martin Plowman is in the place to be, and that's P1.
Let's go back to pit lane. Kevin Lee, what do you have?
James Davison, who won this race the last 2 years in Firestone Indy Lights, is here watching. You had a chance to get back in a race car this weekend. Didn't go exactly the way that you wanted, but at least you had some seats on it.
Yeah, I've just been driving all night from Watkins Glen on the NASCAR weekend. Fortunately, the car broke before I was able to hop in, but I had a great run in practice. I hadn't driven for a good 2 months. Car, so I was happy with that and looking to do a little more. My heart's here in IndyCar, but we all know it's a very good time to get a drive in IndyCar series right now, so I'm just going to be patient and hang in.
Take me into the cockpit of James Hinchcliffe now as he tries to chase Martin Plowman. Where are the opportunities to pass, and do you think he has much of a chance to get around him?
Well, going into his cockpit is deja vu because he's been second to and I've won this year. I guess he's just biding his time. Flowey's always halfway right now. He's just going to maybe see if Flowey's tyres drop off and he has an opportunity. But Martin's driving very well. I have a lot of friends in his team. I want everyone to do well. I want him to do well. You know, his engineer was my engineer last year. Flowey's a talented driver and he needs a breakthrough win. So, yeah, we'll just see what happens. But I think if Martin makes no mistakes, he should be pretty good.
That's James Davison, won here the last 2 years in Mid-Ohio, finished second in the championship, looking to get a full-time ride either in the IZOD IndyCar Series, and he said he's looking around a little bit in Grand Am too.
Tipper man, what are you seeing out there?
What's interesting is the two leaders are coming out to laps. Giancarlo Villarano probably pretty soon. I saw the 4-car at the front of that shot there, so I could imagine within a few laps there it is just at the head of the straight. So Hinch is probably going to be factoring that in. And Davison had an interesting point. I didn't realize that Martin Plowman was running less downforce than Hinchcliffe, so it's going to be really hard for Hinch to pass him on the straights. But maybe Martin's tires will go off with a few laps to go. This race isn't done yet.
Well, we talk about the lap cars. Giancarlo Villarino from Brazil is one of the drivers making his first appearance in Firestone Indy Lights competition here this weekend. He was second in Formula BMW USA in 2009. Had a lot of wins. In fact, he won 6 times in that class, but that is a 1-liter class, so this is a significant step up. Mario Romancini, who, of course, a rookie in IZOD IndyCar Series competition, former Firestone Indy Lights driver, not unfortunately a part of this event this weekend, but he is the driver coach for Villarino, and Villarino will also see in a couple of weeks as he runs the Carneros 100 at Infineon. And Kevin Lee, he's a young guy, only 18 years old, and right now he's just getting his racing legs under him here in this series, and he's going to have the leader sneaking up on him here in just a couple of minutes.
Trying to give you some insight into his cockpit, but I do not speak Portuguese, and that's what he's speaking. Maybe to Mario Romancini, who's working with that team this weekend, but we'll see him at Infineon here as well. But this is also his first open wheel competition. This time he's been in a Formula car since last October, the Star Mazda debut. So this is a steep learning curve this weekend. They just want to bring the car home and get some laps in. Yeah, the Formula BMW Series, where, as we mentioned, he had a lot of success and won a half dozen times, but certainly stepping up to Star Mazda, now to Firestone Indy Lights in a very short period of time. He is in the classroom this weekend and going to school. Attention, and as we watch him give way as the cars, and he does a smart thing there, Pippa. Pulls over, as he's climbing towards the carousel, pulls over and lets the race leaders by cleanly. Actually, very European thing to do. Normally in America, if you're only going 1 lap down, people normally stay on the racing line a lot longer and harder than that, but Martin Plowman and James Hinch will be really, really grateful. Well, Plowman will be. I don't know whether Hinch will be quite so grateful. He might have wanted him to
hey, pal, you could have held him up just a little bit for
get
me.
in the way just a little bit, because they were at a very tricky part of the track to get past. So if he hadn't have gotten out of the way, it could have had an impact on the race. Well, it did not, and that's the good thing. You don't want to have an impact if you don't have to, and Giancarlo Villarino did a good job there. Mario Romancini, as we mentioned, working with him
this weekend. Attention to you, Indy Downforce and IndyCar Nation members. Your code word for the Firestone Indy Lights event from Mid-Ohio this afternoon is Keyhole. Please go to your IndyCar Nation homepage, click on the Earn Points section, then enter the secret word under the radio portion, and you'll receive 400 points. Again, the code word is Keyhole. Great to have you with us for today's Firestone Indy Lights action, the Mid-Ohio 100 here on IndyCar.com. Mike King, the entire IMS Radio Network crew, bringing you commentary from this event, as we are very happy to be joined by Pippa Mann as our guest driver analyst. Unfortunately, not in the car this weekend. The effects of the broken left hand keeping her out of the car after driving. I will say, Pippa, I will commend you on your pain threshold. You had the surgery following the Edmonton event, so you drove 2 events with a cleanly broken left hand, both at Toronto and Edmonton. So I give you high marks for being able to grit the teeth, grin and bear it, and get through the pain.
Yeah, Edmonton was not a huge amount of fun, it has to be said. That was a fairly tough old weekend for me. But, I'm healing up now, and I'm hoping to be back for Sonoma. I was just looking then through the keyhole. Hinch is able to get really, really close to Plowman on the way in, but then his car just pushes a little bit from the dirty air, and he can't quite hang with him on the exit of it. He lost a bit of time through there that time.
And as we heard James Davison mention a bit earlier, and as you made note, the fact that Martin Plowman is running less downforce gives him the advantage through the long straightaway stretches here.
It does give him the advantage through the straights, but, he's probably having to work that little bit harder through the twisty parts, which is why we're seeing the gap constantly concertina between the 2 cars.
The question is, will Martin Plowman be able to conserve the tires for the run to the checkered flag, as he will complete 25 of 40 laps this time, makes the climb now up to the carousel. Martin Plowman out in front in that red and yellow AFS Andretti Autosport car, making his way through 11, 12, and now exiting 13. He'll come in front of us and cross the start-finish line. That means he'll complete 25 of 40 laps. And Jake Query, he's got James Hinchcliffe in his mirrors, about 3 car lengths back, 0.6 of a second, as they make the left-hander in the climb towards you in the keyhole.
And 5 or 6 circuits ago, Dan Clark looked like he wanted to get in there and play a little bit, but now he has dropped back. A significant gap between James Hinchcliffe and Dan Clark. That is, of course, Clark in 3rd position. Martin Plowman coming off of that turn 2, gets himself a little bit of breathing room now as he works his way out of the keyhole with James Hinchcliffe 8 car lengths back.
It stays about that same differential now. Again, they work their way to the high side of this turn number 4. Now they've cut off the bottom toward the apex of that corner, stay off the curving to the bottom side as they make the left-handed swing. Now they'll swing it back right, then a quick little left-hander underneath the bridge before it straightens out again. That differential about 8 to 9 car lengths.
So Martin Plowman seemingly having a great day out there, and only time will tell, Pippa, if the tires are going to hold up for him just fine running the limited downforce. But right now, absolutely no problems for Plowman as he completed a lap. In fact, on lap 25, Pippa, it was his quickest lap of the race at a minute 14.5071.
Yeah, he's driving really well this weekend. There's nothing else you can say from that. He had a good run in Edmonton as well, so he obviously came here with a lot of confidence, and this was easily his best race last year. So I guess he viewed this one as his big chance to win one, and he's, making that chance for life right now.
Sebastian Saavedra has the quickest lap of the race at a minute 14.3055, but Sebastian finds himself running 6th as he runs behind Plowman, Hinchcliffe, Clark, Kimball, and Wilson, your top 5. And Pippa, while we have you here, and as we watch Plowman continue to lead Hinchcliffe by now almost a full second, we want everyone to know that you are forward to 2011, and in fact the drive is on for Pippa Mann to be in the IZOD IndyCar Series next season. I know there's some information out there for fans how they can help.
Well, we actually launched a concept that was slightly strange to me, but everybody else seems to think it's a pretty neat concept, so I'll just go along with everybody else. Oh, we've got a car off Rodrigo Barbosa, car number 18.
That is Barbosa, as he is off just at the entrance of the carousel, so we've got a local. Now he is back on track, so the local, so Rodrigo Barbosa with the spin, but he is back on track safely.
It's just an idea where to try and raise the funding to run in the 500 next year. We decided to set up a podium that's on my website, and fans can buy a brick, and we sell the bricks for as little as £10 sterling, which is about $16 at the current exchange rate. Oh, they were coming up to that Barbosa where they went this month.
Well, they're coming up.
They're coming up to lap him
yeah,
now.
they're coming up to lap him right now. Mark
It says
James
replay on the screen, so it had me confused.
Yeah, so Mark James, Barbosa's back on track, but he's out on track in front of the leaders in front of you.
He does the sportsmanlike thing and tries to stay to the high side and stay out of the way. Leaves plenty of room for Plowman. He also tries to stay to the high side, and he'll tiptoe into this entrance to turn number 4. Give Hinch plenty of room to get around him. That differential shrinks to about 5 car lengths, but as they make that final right and then the quick little left-handed turn, it looks like Plowman got that same differential of about 8 car lengths right back.
You were afraid that Barbosa was going to turn down on Hinch, weren't you?
Yeah, Hinch won't be buying Barbosa any flowers for that little move there. I mean, it would have been, he cracked the throttle a little bit for Plowman, it seemed, but it would have been very easy to just crack it enough for Hinch to slip through in there without having to try and tough it out around the outside and hope that flex a little more.
James Hinchcliffe loses a couple of car lengths, if you will, in that exchange and maybe a quick breath. So as we watch now, Dan Clark is going to have to work his way around the Barbosa machine as they make the left-hander off of turn number 1. So you've got Barbosa, Jake Query, who's holding up the third-place car of Clark and the fourth-place car of Kimball coming to you.
Yeah, and those two can't necessarily afford that as Clark works his way around, and now Kimball does too. Rodrigo Barbosa went high as the leaders have already worked their way towards the top of the keyhole, and then now Clark and Kimball in smooth sailing behind them.
A 2-horse race now as we start to set up for turn number 4. A lot of smoke in front of you, Jake Query.
Cars had gotten off but got right back onto the course. It was Sebastian Saavedra got loose, but immediately got it right back on, and that picked up some dirt that a couple of other cars now we're going to have to deal with as they come their way through.
Yeah, in fact, we're watching Sebastian Saavedra work on Stephen Wilson. That had become a pretty good battle, but Pippa looked like Sebastian simply overdrove exiting turn number 2, and as Jake mentioned, just got to the dirt there, but did a good job of getting it back on course.
He did a great job of getting it back on course. Turn number 2 is a pretty difficult exit when you're in clean air, when you're in dirty air. It just makes the car push off there that little bit harder, and with a little bit extra push, he was just trying to use all the road, found a little bit more than he was meant to use, but great save. And he's back on course.
Well, one thing is for certain, James Hinchcliffe is not letting Martin Plowman get away. And Jake Query, as we watch them pass in front of us to complete 29 of 40 laps here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, there's about 0.7 of a second, about 3 car lengths separating our top 2 cars as they head to you.
As they come towards me, it almost looks like one car coming towards me. Then, of course, as they start to make the turn, you can see where Plowman fans out just a little bit. But James Hinchcliffe has had that same distance right on the rear wheels of Martin Plowman so far the entire day.
24th career start for Martin Plowman at Mid-Ohio this weekend. Goose eggs in terms of the win column, but it's not as though he's not been competitive. He has 8 top 5, 16 top 10s. It's the first race he's ever led. He only has 2 DNFs in those 23 starts, so needless to say, as happy-go-lucky Mike as Martin Plowman is when we see him, I would say that would be jacked up about 100 times if we were able to see him in victory lane today.
He is currently 3rd in the championship, and you look at his season, and as Pippa mentioned earlier, the AFS Andretti Autosport team, they are always very, very good when it comes to the cars that they give their drivers. We remember what Saavedra and what J.R. Hildebrand did last year. Martin Plowman, though, he wound up 6th in the season opener at St. Petersburg. He was 4th at Barber. He was 5th at Long Beach. He was 5th at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He was 5th at Iowa. He finished 4th, make it 2nd at Iowa. He finished 4th at Watkins Glen. He was 7th at Toronto. He was 3rd at Edmonton. So the 7th place finish, Pippa, for him at Toronto, his worst of the season. And now here today, he has been very, very dominant in leading all 30 laps from the pole.
Yeah, he was a little bit lucky in Toronto. He made a mistake and took his wing off, had to come into the pits, but the team managed to change it in time to get him back out still on the lead lap, and then there was a safety car, so he was able to catch up again, and then he made some decent passes.
The 22 of Campos Jr., it looked like he was racing the Yakiman car pretty good, but Yakiman still made the pass. Meantime, you've got Stephen Wilson trying to hold off Sebastian Saavedra. This is the resumption of the battle that we saw earlier. Saavedra had to break it off after he got off the race course, slightly exiting turn number 2 a couple of laps earlier. Now Stephen Wilson with his mirrors full of the William Raz car as they make their way up to the carousel in front of us. They'll be coming our way shortly. As right now, Sebastian Saavedra really trying to drive the wheels off, and in fact, he got kind of loose that time through turn number 10.
He got really loose through the jump turn that time. He's absolutely pushing like crazy. He does not want to be beaten by his teammate, especially when you can see him that close. He is pushing really hard.
Here they are in front of us, the two Brian Herta Autosport cars, as they will make their way off of turn number 1 with the 22 of Adrian Campos Jr., Jake Query running behind them, headed towards you.
Yeah, Sebastian Saavedra. The leaders go by me now. Now here comes Sebastian Saavedra. He's about 5 car lengths behind Stefan Wilson. Sebastian Saavedra, Stefan Wilson in front of him, and then Campos Jr. The distance for those 3 cars remains the same. Stefan Wilson now gives himself a little bit of room now, Mark James, in front of you as this Sebastian Saavedra trailing behind.
About 6 car lengths as they pass what was the starting line for this Mid-Ohio 100. Wilson will climb on the binders, yank the wheel to the left, and then he'll climb up the hill a little bit as he makes kind of a sweeping left-handed turn. A little short straightaway, not much time to breathe before he has to pull the wheel to the right-hand side and then back to the left. That's why they call it the entrance, because of what it looks like from the sky, a great big S. They go from there into the entrance to Thunder Valley.
Meantime, James Hinchcliffe trying to make up ground on Martin Plowman. He just can't get it done. 32 laps will be complete this time as the 2 lead cars, Plowman and Hinchcliffe, pass in front of us and cross the start-finish line. So only 8 laps remain, and Pippa with a 0.6 of a second gap. We have seen Hinchcliffe shave it just a bit, but last time by, Plowman turning his quickest lap of the race at a minute 14.3353.
And Hinchcliffe did a 13.9 on that last time through. I think that's the fastest lap of the race so far, 13.9.
Exactly, so we're seeing these drivers get quicker and quicker, and Hinchcliffe right now about 0.4 of a second quicker. Question is, will he be able to time it where he can catch up and the momentum allow him to carry himself into a corner and make the pass on Martin Plowman?
Yep, it's one thing to catch up, it's another thing to get past. And at the moment, Plowman's just able to hold him off a little bit further than he had been earlier in the race. So Plowman has all the cards right now for this race.
So the quickest lap of this race turned on lap 32 by second place James Hinchcliffe at a minute 13.9532. One other driver has been in the 13s, and that is J.K. Vernet. So your teammate finding something maybe a little bit late here, Pippa, as he continues to run in 8th place. Don't know if he has enough time to play catch-up.
No, he's doesn't look like there's enough time left for him.
He
to
is
even
well back,
catch
18 seconds behind the leader, Martin Plowman.
Yep, and he's 8 seconds behind the next car as well of Campos, so it's going to be very difficult for him to make up that much ground, but it's great that he's finally getting the hang of this place, because that'll serve him well when we come back here next year.
J.K. Vernet, Mark Janes, has only been off of the podium in one event this season, and that was the Freedom 100 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where he finished 13th. Other than that, he has either been first, second, or third, and this guy's had an incredible season.
He's led 132 laps in just 8 starts. He's got a pretty good batting average, Mike. 4 wins and 8 starts, and a couple of poles, 7 top 5, 7 top 10, as we mentioned. He's led 4 times for 132 laps, and he has that very familiar, as we mentioned, number 7, red and white Lucas Oil machine back up front on a consistent basis this year, where we have seen it so many times over the years. He's had a great season, J.K. Vernet, as he works his way around the 18 machine of Rodrigo Barbosa at the entrance to turn 4.
Yeah, so J.K. Vernet right now, as we mentioned, running in 8th place. He started 7th, gave up a position early on track, has not been able to make up any ground, but clearly is getting faster as this race moves along. Right now, though, it is Martin Plowman who finds himself 6 laps away from victory for the first time in Firestone Indy Lights competition. As he crosses the line in front of James Hinchcliffe, 77 hundredths of a second. Jake Query separating our top 2 as they head to you in turn 2.
That distance remains the same. Good battle in the back as well, as Stefan Wilson and Sebastian Saavedra continue to do battle, and Saavedra really starting to put the heat on his teammate. But right now, the eyes up front as Martin Plowman about a 4 to 6 car length advantage. It remains the same with James Hinchcliffe in second.
As we mentioned, this would be his 7th top 5 finish, and if he goes all the way to the checkers, he will have been the only driver to complete every lap so far this season. Of the 405 laps contested going into this race this weekend, Martin Plowman, the only driver in the Firestone Indy Lights to finish on the lead lap.
Saavedra wants to get by his teammate, as you've noted a couple of times. It's been a pretty good battle, and right now, Pippa, there's no denying that the William Raz car and that Brian Herta Autosport of Stefan Wilson, both of those drivers are going at 110%.
Yeah, absolutely. They're both absolutely just completely flat out on it. I mean, Wilson thought he was going to come back and have a really good weekend here, and I know he was a little disappointed. But, you know, he's driving really well right now, and He's driving so fast, he's making it real difficult for Sebastian to kind of get a hold of him.
Here they are in front of us as the 28 and the 29, the blue and white of Stephen Wilson and the gray and orange machine of Sebastian Saavedra will come off of turn number 1, and they'll make the long climb up to Jake Query. And Jake, the teammates continue to battle. Sebastian Saavedra, though, he's going to need to make up about 4 car lengths before he can have a shot at making the pass.
As they enter turn number 2, that's where you see Sebastian Saavedra really close in on the heels of Stephen Wilson. But then through the sweep of the turn, Wilson is able to get himself a little bit of room. They now move just past the flag stand into the view of Mark 2.
Oh, who's that? We've got a car off track.
Back for turn number 4, Wilson trying to hold off Saavedra. It's 28 versus 29 on the car just in front of him. Charlie Kimball kicked up a little bit of dust. Well, check that. That was James Hinchcliffe that kicked up the dirt, the dust of the sand. He was momentarily, our view was obscured by the Armco as he got back onto the racetrack, and we couldn't quite exactly see who that was, but he's back underway.
Boy, and Pippa, James Hinchcliffe makes a mistake. He has done that a couple of times this season in the late going. We saw him do it at Watkins Glen. We saw him do it at Toronto. It has certainly cost him an opportunity to be in the championship hunt at this point. And once again, a mistake by James Hinchcliffe is going to cost him a lot of ground. And he very nearly collected his teammate Adrian Campos Jr. as he came back on track.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so sorry for James. I mean, you know, he's obviously just been pushing really, really hard, and he's finally made a mistake. But Plowman's pretty much clears through for the win now. Here we're going to see a replay of it. No,
this
it's just a shot of Plowman.
This is just Plowman now pulling away.
He is now clean in the lead. No one anywhere
and clear,
near him.
and some 4 seconds. And there's the replay as
the back of the car just came away a little bit, got up the brakes, had to get back on them. The front's locked up. Yeah, once the car's going off like that, there's not much you can do. He was just a passenger.
Pippa was the outside line where he kind of locked up, getting set to make the apex in turn number 4, and it just kicked out on him and ran him straight to the sand trap.
Yeah, if he hadn't have straightened up his hands, the car would have spun. So he straightened up his hands and elected to try and go straight, but you know, just didn't catch it in time.
Okay, so we've got less than 4 laps remaining. Martin Plowman right now, all he has to do is maintain his composure, and he is going to have his first win in Firestone Indy Lights competition. Kevin Lee, an update from pit lane.
In the AFS Andretti Auto Sport pit, and once they learned that Hinchcliffe had gone off, it was as if they had taken the checkered flag, maybe not quite as if we were, that they know they're pretty much home free as long as Plowman doesn't make a major mistake.
Well, let's remember, Kevin, we've seen some odd things happen here at Mid-Ohio in Firestone Indy Lights action. In fact, it was 3 years ago that a driver who won the race actually did not take the checkers under yellow and pulled into pit lane and gave the win over to Davidson. It was an amazing finish here, so I'm assuming they're not going to say anything to Martin Plowman until the actual checkers fly over that car. I believe it was Johnny Reed.
In a monsoon 2 years ago.
Yep.
James Davis, who was talking a little while ago, was the beneficiary. That's why winning here last year meant so much, because he knew that was in somewhat different circumstances when he won here in 2008.
Yeah, Johnny Reed came off of, was entering the carousel. The checkered flag was literally waving in the flag stand about 400 yards in front of him. But instead of staying on the track, Pippa, and taking the checkers, he pulled onto pit lane, stopped. Davidson remained along with the rest of the field out on track, and James Davison was handed the win quite literally on a wet silver platter, if you will. But it was a silver platter at that point.
Well, you could argue, I guess, that he still had to stay on through those horrendous conditions and be that Abbott handed to him, but you have to feel bad for Johnny Reed in that situation.
You really do, and it completely changed his career as Johnny Reed, who at the time was driving for Apex Racing, which was a part of Target Chip Ganassi Racing. I don't know if we ever saw him again after that. If we did, it was a very brief appearance, and that team went away. So literally ecstasy and agony experienced by that team in the space of one short lap. Martin Plowman is about a lap and a half away, though, from the ecstasy, Pippa, as he is out there all by himself in front of that big crowd on the hill overlooking the S's, and he's got to be feeling real good right now. But how much do you have to suppress the emotions in the race car when you're this close to your first win?
He's just going to be driving right now. I mean, Hinch isn't even behind him. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing, not make any mistakes.
Well, he has not made any up to this point as Martin Plowman, the driver from England, who started on pole for the first time, making his way through the carousel. He will come past us. He will see the white flag. 39 laps complete for Martin Plowman in the AFS Andretti Autosport entry. He'll make the left-hander for the final time on the turn number 1, and Jake Query, he climbs to you in the keyhole.
He's backed
top
up quite a
5s
bit.
in his career. He's got 8 top 10s, but Martin Plowman has never in the Firestone Indy Lights Series taken the checkered flag, but as he's done all day long, very smoothly through turn number 2, he's got a comfortable lead over Dan Clark and Charlie Kimball, who runs 2nd and 3rd. Martin Plowman on his giddy-up trying to get that first win.
It's been a season of firsts for Martin Plowman. His first podium finish was at Iowa Speedway. His first pole was yesterday here at Mid-Ohio. And Mike King, as he makes his way through the 4, 5, and 6 complex for what he hopes will be the final time, Martin Plowman is on the verge of getting to victory lane for the first time as we see his car has gone off course.
Yeah, Martinez is off course as he is in the sand trap in turn number 9. He will not see the checkers. Martin Plowman, on the other hand, is going to keep it between the white lines as he crosses underneath the bridge, exiting turn number 9 through turn number 10. And now he'll make his way through the carousel combination. 11, 12, and 13 for the final time this afternoon. The driver from Tamworth, England, Martin Plowman, has kicked in the door in big-time fashion as he has led all 40 laps and he has won in Firestone Indy Lights competition. Let's go to Kevin Lee.
You can hear the team celebrating AFS Andretti Autosport. Stu Kenworthy is the engineer. Congratulations, great drive, great calls from you guys.
He had a good car all weekend, and he got the very best out of it, and that's all I can ask. He never made a mistake. I'm so proud of him, and so pleased for him. He's such a nice kid, and he deserves everything he gets.
Congratulations, headed to victory lane. Gary Peterson, Michael Andretti, Stu Kenworthy. He's the engineer for the 27 car for Martin Plowman.
Martin Plowman getting a nice hand from all of the other drivers on track as they circulate around him. Mark James in front of you, giving him a thumbs up, and that's a nice salute for this young man.
Well, he's a likable young man. There's no question about that. And it's been a great season for Martin Plowman. Certainly has not put together the kind of numbers that J.K. Vernet or maybe even James Hinchcliffe. But as we said, slowly but surely over the course of this season, Martin Plowman has accomplished a lot of firsts for him in his career. And boy, I'll tell you what, it is a celebratory wave as he makes his way around this course, saluting the fans. And Mike, this will be one of the happiest victory lanes that we've seen in recent memory. It's always great to see a first-time winner, no matter what the series.
You're exactly right. Looking forward to hearing from him. And, of course, our senior pit reporter, Kevin Lee, and Nick Plowman, both on pit lane, and we'll be getting more reaction.